opening it to start the meeting. So it's 9:14 a.m. Thank you for your attendance, and I'll just adjourn the meeting. Okay, we'll keep going with the meeting. 9:52 a.m. We have confirmation of the ordinary minutes on the 22nd of July 2020. Do we have a mover?
Now I move that the minutes for the ordinary meeting on the 22nd of July be accepted, noted and accepted.
We have a seconder?
Mayor, I've just got some changes to propose.
Please go ahead, Councillor.
So page 29. Where it references the times that council has left the meeting returned, it does not list that I left the meeting at 5:03. And returned to the meeting at 6:41 p.m. by teleconference, and then subsequently left the meeting and did not continue with the meeting from 6:45 p.m. onwards. Page number 41, you'll note C16 is a vote of 8-0, then C17, and this may have been done out of order, I can't remember. C17 has a vote of 9-0, which would, based on C16, you could draw a conclusion that the next one should be 8-0 also, because I wasn't present. And then C18, where a division was called on a matter, it should be 8-0, not 9-0.
It should be 1, should be 7.
Oh, sorry, 7-1 rather than 9-0. Thanks, Councillor Burke.
Is the mover happy with those amendments?
Yes.
Councillor McMullen, are you happy with the word be confirmed and for the motion?
Yeah. That'll be fine, yes.
Councillor O'Neill, are you
Subject to those amendments.
Yeah.
you happy how it is on the screen now, from what you said?
You just scroll down a little bit when we can. Yep, that's fine. I'm happy to second that.
Okay, we've got a seconder. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, do we have anyone to move on the minutes of the special meeting 29th of July 2020?
I'll move that the minutes of the special meeting held on the 29th of July 2020.
We have a seconder. Councillor Ladbrokes. Anyone wish to speak? Let's go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Councillor Burkett, you're in vote. Yeah. Okay. So we're now moving on to declarations of conduct.
Budget submission.
No, there's no minutes.
Oh yeah, those
Budget
ones
submission.
No, from the meeting on the 29th of July.
We just did the 29th.
No, but there was
We've just done a special meeting.
Oh, sorry.
Is it a special meeting?
That was the special meeting. Now there's the budget submissions and financial planning.
Page 60.
That's what it is. The budget meeting.
Sorry, you just moved the budget meeting, you did?
No, I said, I just said to the mayor, the budget meeting was that.
And then we've got yesterday's to do as well.
So there's two budget.
So that was so what you moved,
Was a special.
Deputy Mayor, was that the budget meeting on the 29th?
Special.
Special meeting.
Special meeting.
Special meeting.
No, I moved the ordinary minutes.
Yeah, and I seconded that.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Councillor.
Special. Well, for the budget.
Right, is that the one with the line through it?
Yeah.
Yeah. It looked a bit, I thought it was crossed out originally.
No,
Yeah.
another photocopy,
Yeah.
technical glitch.
Okay, so does someone want to move on the budget submission to the Financial Planning Standing Committee, 29th of July?
I've just got an amendment.
Let's go ahead.
Page 60. Councillor McMullen moved that we go into close. Councillor Burkett seconded. No vote was taken on the motion at the time, with myself raising the question about declaring conflicts of interest. The Mayor then suggested the committee move in and out of closed. There was not a resolution by the Mayor to move into closed. That's not accurate. I looked at the video. The Mayor then subsequently put the motion, which was originally moved by the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Burkett, to move into committee. And the reason it stood out, I don't normally go back and look at the videos, you can't put a resolution to move in and out of committee that's only moved by one councillor.
It should have been a second, though.
And there wasn't, because you'd already took a motion from Councillor McMullen and Councillor Burkett. I raised the point around the conflicts of interest. You then recommended to the meeting that we move in and out of closed. You did that by a vote being taken on resolution 103. There was no resolution 104.
Yeah, councillors, can I just ask if there is a question like this, could you please raise it when the minutes are circulated to councillors, because then we have an opportunity to go back and check. It's going to be very awkward now trying to go back and replay to check that.
Yep, no worries.
So Councillor O'Neill, what do you suggest we do?
It was a very odd, in my memory, it was a very odd situation, because I think it was almost like too far in Mr. Mayor said, we'll go and come out again. But I think probably the safest is we'll just leave that on the table, recognising that we will need to go back and check.
Well, we can, I'll move that we lay the adoption of the Budget Submission Financial Planning Standing Committee 29th of July 2020 to later in the meeting.
Because I think in this particular case, Mr. Mayor, we've got no option, because I'm not comfortable in raising that without checking in the other councillors we are comfortable with.
Right, so you've moved that, we'll take that to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Okay, so has everyone had a chance to look at the budget submissions and financial planning standing committee for the 11th of August 2020? Everyone seen that? We have a move on those minutes.
Yesterday, wasn't it?
It's just,
Remind me of that leaving the meeting. Oh, no, sorry, that was last one.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mayor, we're doing the 11th of August or the 5th of August, the budget submission?
Yesterday.
it's a reward.
So we were just talking about the 11th of August. Is there another one for the 5th we haven't done, is there? And it's not in this agenda. So is anyone happy to move on the 11th of August?
So, Mayor, I'll move that we lay the adoption of the budget submissions of financial planning standing committee meetings of the 5th and the 11th of August until later in the meeting.
All those in favour? 9. Okay, moving on to conflicts of interest. Do we have any conflicts of interest? Councillor Ladbrook.
I, Councillor Ladbrook, declare that I have a material personal interest as defined in the Local Government Act 2009, Section 175B, for the agenda item C11, with the subject heading 3-hour regulated parking in Roma CBD. The person to benefit is myself, where I have a business in the CBD and may be seen to gain by this decision in accordance with Section 175C2D of the Local Government Act 2009. I will leave the room while the matter is being discussed and voted on.
Okay. Any others on this side of the table? Okay, well, I'll declare a conflict of interest. I'll declare a material personal interest. I, Councillor Tyson Golder, declare that I've got a material personal interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, Section 175B, for agenda item C11, with the subject heading C11, regulated parking in Roma CBD. The particulars of the interest are as follows. The name of the person is myself, and the material personal interest is in relation to my business goals, which will suffer a loss in the introduction of regulated parking introduced. And in accordance with Section 175C2B of the Local Government Act, I will leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on. I'd also like to declare a conflict of interest. I, Councillor Tyson Golder, declare that I have a conflict of interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, Section 175D and E, for the agenda item hasn't been described yet, with the subject heading correspondence in relation to flood mitigation. The conflict of interest, the name of the other person is involved in this conflict of interest is my mother, Carmen Golder, and the nature of the person's interest is in the matter is flood mitigation matters and compensation agreement dating back to before I was on council, and I'll be dealing with this matter by leaving the room while the matter is discussed and voted on. Do you have any other conflicts? Please go ahead.
I, Councillor Mark Edwards, declare the range of material personal interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, Section 175B, for agenda item C11, with the subject heading 3-hour regulated parking around the CBD. The MD is my employer. I'm an employee of a business which leases an office in McDowell Street, and that business may stand to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, either directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of Council's consideration of this matter. In accordance with Section 175C2B of the Local Government Act 2009, I will leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Okay, any other conflicts? Councillor Hancock.
I, Councillor Joanne Hancock, declare that I have a perceived conflict of interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, Section 175D and E for agenda item 10.1 with the subject heading Annual Show, Public Holidays for 2021. The personal interest arises because my relationship with Stephen Hancock, he is my brother-in-law, and the nature of the other person's interest in the matter is Stephen is president of the Mitchell Show Society. I've determined that this personal interest is not of sufficient significance that it will lead me to making a decision on the matter that is contrary to the public interest. I will best perform my responsibility of serving the overall public interest of the whole of the council area by participating in the discussion and voting on the matter. However, I acknowledge that the remaining councillors must now determine, pursuant to Section 175E(4) of the Local Government Act 2009, A, whether I have a real conflict of interest in this matter or a perceived conflict of interest in this matter, and B, if so, whether 1, I must leave the meeting while this matter is voted and discussed and voted on, or 2, I may participate in the meeting in relation to the matter, including by voting on the matter.
Okay, do we have anyone to move on that? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Councillor Joe Hancock has a perceived conflict of interest in the matter, notwithstanding the conflict. Councillor Hancock may participate in the matter, discuss and vote upon it.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 980.
Mr Mayor, I have another conflict.
Right, please go ahead.
I, Councillor Joanne Hancock, declare that I have a material personal interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, Section 175B for agenda item 13.2 with the subject heading Newspapers within the Maranoa. The particulars of the interest are as follows. The name of the entity who stands to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, either directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of the consideration of the matter at the meeting, is Surat Post and News Proprietary Limited. The nature of my relationship to the entity is that the entity is my husband's, Graham Hancock, and my parents, Paul and Rachel Paravicini's business. The entity stands to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, either directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of Council's consideration of this matter by the ability to sell the newspapers. In accordance with Section 175C2B of the Local Government Act 2009, I will leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Okay, thank you. Any other conflicts? Righto, we'll move on to the agenda if there's nothing else. Okay, page 77 then. Item 8.1, structures for community contact. I would like to move that council 1, not elect to have portfolios for the 2020-2024 term. Number 2, that council be invited for photo opportunities as a whole. 3, that council be invited for consultation with communities at meetings as a whole. Number 4, elect the mayor to be a spokesman in press releases, and if he's not available, the deputy mayor to be available. Point 5, instead of having advisory groups, schedule special meetings to hear the feedback and concerns of former advisory members and community members on topics such as wild dogs, sale yards, etc., with the frequency of meetings decided by council, thus incorporating involvement of all councillors in all issues. Do we have a second for that motion? Councillor Edwards.
Mr Mayor, could I maybe request an amendment?
Sure.
Top point 2 and 3 I know it says that council, we need to, could we say all councillors? Like,
Yeah, I'm happy to.
just
I'm
make
happy
it
to
more
change
clear
that
that
to
all
all councillors for point 2 and point 3.
Two.
It's just not going to flow because of the
Well, yeah, I
it
don't know.
says that council, so we probably need to change that to be able to get it covered.
Okay, so we have a seconder. Do we have any opposition to the motion? Does the mover wish to speak to the motion? Certainly do. I believe this is an opportunity to have the maximum involvement of all councillors in all issues, and I believe that extra involvement with councillors in all photo opportunities is a positive move. This seems to have happened so far where possible, and this is a very positive thing, and it, as the council as a whole, the 9 councillors make decisions, that I believe this is the best way to get the best decisions for this council term. Okay, would someone wish to speak against the motion?
Yes.
Right, please go ahead.
I have a couple of problems with this one. I thought we were going to have a briefing on portfolios. We requested a briefing on portfolios because we don't know what they involve or how they, what happens in briefing on portfolios.
Well, I think if this motion doesn't get up, we certainly could then have a briefing, or you could put a different motion up.
With respect, Tyson, we asked for a briefing first, so how can you bring a motion that, like, it just comes out of nowhere? When we asked, it was on our things, a list of things to do. And the other thing is the advisory members, I don't even know what that is, like, I don't know what that involves. Like, I just think we've been taken left field here with I just don't know, I don't understand where all this came from when I thought we were discussing things. So can you tell me about the advisory members and why you don't want them?
Yeah, I think the feedback that I had is the advisory groups, whilst they're positive, there was not a decision-making forum, whereas a special meeting is a decision-making forum. So this is an opportunity, and the advisory groups did not have all councillors involved with them. So there was.
So what was it? Can you give me an example of an advisory group?
Oh, well, it could be like the Sayards advisory group.
Well, that's a big one. What about the little towns that have, I don't know, what does Injune have? Something, was there anyone on the advisory committee in Injune? What about Surat?
So Surat had the Cobby Coast Store Museum Advisory Group, which was very hands-on. It's discussing
And there was
exhibitions.
a councillor on it.
A councillor was the chair of that.
Was it a Surat councillor?
No, it was a portfolio councillor, and the Surat councillor also attended.
So we don't know these things. Like, I don't know how you can ask us to vote on something we don't understand yet, because we haven't been informed.
Yeah, so, well, I think it's very clear. I'm sure you understood what portfolios.
But I don't know which ones there were. Like, I don't know how many there were. I don't know what it involved, as in, you know, meetings or bringing it back to the table. Like, I don't know what they were. Like, there was one for the sale yards, was there? There was one for the airport. I don't know. What else was there? How many were there?
Well, basically, I'm happy to lay this on the table to get more information on that.
That would be good, thank you.
If you're going to lay it on the table, I'll talk later.
Yeah, for later in the meeting to get more information. All those in favour?
Look, we probably, I've got a few things that I'd probably like to point out that might have to go into that report, if that's, so whether you'd like me to speak now or speak later.
I can speak too if you're going to speak.
Well, we just laid it on the table.
We didn't take a vote though.
Yeah, we definitely did.
Well, I didn't raise my hand, Mr Mayor.
I haven't asked for who's against yet. So who's against?
For laying it on the table, is that the vote we're taking right now?
Yeah.
Well, you need to make it clear, when you called for 4, there was an interjection, and there wasn't a count. I don't know who voted for this.
I was just waiting to do both sides and then say that.
So do you know how many people voted for it then?
Yeah, 6 voted for it. And,
I'm happy to vote on the table, but at the same time, if Joe's got something that might also need addressing later, might as well hear it now.
Can we, well, unless we lay it on the table to next meeting and then give more time to have information.
All I'm saying is, when I understand that on the whole vote, we will have the opportunity to speak, but if we're laying on the table to go and get some more information, then maybe something that we have to say here might help with getting that information.
well, requested by Councillor Taylor to have more information. Do you have any extra information you would like?
I've got,
Councillor Hancock? Is that
Well, yes, you give me the opportunity to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Well, for more information, so we can lay it on the table and get what you and Jason.
Well, I actually agree wholeheartedly with what Councillor Taylor said. I'm really disappointed that this has come to this meeting at this time and how it's come to this meeting. I believe that we need a full briefing and a full look at the whole portfolios and all the advisory groups, because I too believe that one size doesn't fit all. Special meetings won't fit all for our advisory groups. And so I think we need to actually have a look at how that all happens and how they work. And also, you know, there is the community feedback. I acknowledge that there is community feedback that some advisory groups weren't working, but then some advisory groups were working. We've had letters given to us asking for advisory groups to be put back on the table. So I think that we need to look at it as a whole approach of what are the advisory groups, how many are there, how was council involved in those advisory groups, because it wasn't all the same across the board. And I'd also like to know then, if we're not having advisory groups, how are we choosing the people who are representing for instance, the wild dogs externally? How are we choosing those people? Because we've already seen, and no disrespect for Councillor McMullen or Councillor Guthrie, but we've already seen that I just invited Councillor Guthrie because she had an interest in it. Well, there's other councillors around the table that might have an interest in it. I think that it's going to be very, very messy if we don't have a really good discussion. Now, I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I'm just asking, the same as Councillor Taylor, for us to actually have a discussion and to have all the facts in front of us. And let's have a look at what worked, what didn't work. Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's have a look at it all. I'd like to know how we're going to manage it moving forward, not just come here, vote against it with no plan of how we're going to manage it moving forward. And that's all I will say on the portfolios and advisory group, but I actually do have something else to say when it comes back to the table on some other points.
So my question to you was about what other information?
That's correct. I want the full information about how many portfolios, how many advisory groups, what role did council play in all those advisory groups. I think the new councillors need to know. I don't think we should be asked to be voting on something that we're actually not informed about.
Okay, so does anybody else want any more information?
Mr Mayor, information, I'd like the resolution that went through council last term when we abandoned, or disbanded I should say, 2 or 3 of the advisory groups because of lack of attendance, I suppose is the word. That's one thing, yeah.
Okay, so we've got that.
I'll also say something. So, like when did these minutes come out? They were given to us 1 week ago. So, is there a way in which councillors can actually get information before coming to this meeting?
We were going to have a briefing we asked for a briefing on portfolios. My question is, why can't we have the briefing? Simple.
But to get some sort of information, have you requested before the meeting, like in the last
I
week?
requested it the day I sat at the table.
In the last week, would you have requested information in relation to this in relation to this particular item number, that's what I'm asking. You know, therefore you would have had more information. I'm not saying rule it out, I'm just saying, look at it in some other way of getting information through some other.
So you know all about portfolios that you don't want them and that's why you're hiding on this?
No, I'm not saying that. No.
Anyway, we've
I'm just
got a
saying,
vote.
getting information.
And then we'll,
Wondering, councillors, for a suggestion, it is quite a meaty topic, like there is a lot of information to get across in terms of the fors and events and the pros and cons and things like that, so I understand where you're coming from, councillor Taylor. I know, councillor Edwards, we do have like a section 178, but that's just sort of really best approach for the provision of one-sided information. Whereas I think where you're coming from, councillor Taylor, is that there probably needs to be a bit of discussion and understanding of what worked and what didn't work, so that we can learn from experience and where the new council wants to keep going forward on an informed basis. So I could offer councillors that we could do a briefing if councillors in the majority wanted to lay it on the table to the next meeting.
I think, Mayor McCann, it is now, given what Councillor Taylor and Councillor Hancock and to a lesser degree the Deputy Mayor have raised, I think it's unrealistic to suggest that staff have the ability to be able to get this information between this moment in time and by the time we finish this meeting today. I think at the very least it would be prudent upon you to amend your procedural motion of laying it on the table until the next ordinary meeting of council.
yeah, all I'm happy to lay it on the, I'll change my motion to lay it on the table till the next ordinary meeting of council.
For a briefing to occur, is that?
I'm happy to have a briefing to occur and then we can decide at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Item 10.1, annual show public holiday for 2021. We have a mover, councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that the CEO make application for ministerial approval for the following special holidays: Friday the 7th of May 2021 for the 2021 Roma annual show holiday, and Tuesday the 11th of May 2021 for the 2021 Mitchell annual show holiday.
Yeah, so, through Mr. Head, Wallabilla show, do they have a?
They don't have a public, they
They don't have a
go
public
on.
holiday. They sort of the Roma show. They still have a show.
Yeah, it's a Saturday.
Okay, we have a seconder. Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0.
Thank you.
Item 11.1, annual valuation consultation for the Maranoa region. Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that council write to the Department of Natural Resources, Mines and Energy with the position that Maranoa Regional Council requests that a valuation be required to be effective the 30th of June 2021.
We have a second for that motion.
Sorry, Councillor, what is that specific date?
By the 30th of June 2021. Sorry, to be effective by the 30th. To be effective on the 30th of June 2021.
We have Councillor Taylor second that. Anyone speak in opposition? I'll speak in opposition to that. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. In the first term of council for me, which was the 2012 to 2016, there were, on an annual basis, like we've seen here today, a report from the staff detailing correspondence from the Department of Natural Resources and Mines and Energy, from the Valuer General, asking our position as a council as to whether we should or advocate for the valuations to occur. Each year of that term, they were undertaken. In the last year of that term, when asked, the council's position was that they weren't undertaken, that no valuation occurred. I supported that at the time because there'd been significant increases over the last at least 3 years and probably longer prior to myself joining council. There'd been significant increases in land valuation. I thought that was the right decision at the time because of those increases. As it turns out, by holding the land valuations by 1 year, when they did the valuations in the following financial year, there were significant decreases, which had a major impact on individuals. It had a major impact on council's annual budget, and I just think it was wrong. Now, whilst the department simply asks for our position, they can disregard what our advice is. I think it is prudent upon us that we should let the market do what the market does, and that will be dictated by the valuations. I'm been burnt by that decision that occurred in my first term. I should never have supported, and speaking to my former colleagues at the time, they agree that we should not have advocated for the holding off the valuation of that particular year. So whilst we may not like the outcome, or we might like the outcome, but we may not like the outcome of having valuations, I think it is prudent upon us to advocate that they need to happen on an annual basis.
Well, I'll speak against the motion. I certainly don't believe this is in the local government's interest to do a valuation at the moment. I think we've got major volatility in what is happening. We've got the effects of COVID-19, which is changing things, and I do not believe now is the time to have a valuation. I certainly remember the time where I scratched my head at why a valuation wasn't done before I was on council, and this is, I believe, a time where it would be prudent not to do a valuation and wait for a period of time. There's obviously a cost to council, I believe. I'll be happy to be corrected if that's not correct. And I believe it's not in the local government area's interest for us to be recommending a valuation for the next year. Would anyone like to speak for the motion?
I just have a question, Mr Mayor.
Please go ahead.
Through you, Sharon, does it cost us to do that?
I'm just going to ask that. I don't know whether it's included in our MSC or whether it is on top.
From memory, from memory, I don't think it cost us any more. When we not last year, the year before, when we opted not to do one, we discussed the payment on it, yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to stand corrected on that, but I go back to the original of why I don't believe it is in council's interest. Now, would anyone wish to speak for the motion? Councillor
I
Hancock.
just want to speak, Mr Mayor.
Right, please go ahead.
I just want to clarify, so we're not doing the valuation now, it's actually going to be the 30th of June, by 30th of June 2021. Does that mean that it can happen any time between now and the 30th of June 2021, or does it happen closer to 30 June 2021?
So the Department of Natural Resources will do it in the coming year so that it's in place.
So it'd be in 2021 sometime, not 2020.
Well, they'll have to make that decision and then they'll do it.
They'll be issued on the 31st of March next year to come into effect.
Yeah,
So
I
it
just,
will be done in this.
right, just, and then, Mr Mayor, how, if we don't do it, I remember the flow-on effect with prices going up, and we know that our land, those rural land values around here have gone up, prices of land, so I'm just, what would be the fallout? Will there be a double whammy for those rural properties, when we do get the valuation?
You asking me a question?
Yeah, I am, just so I can, because I don't know the answer, I'm actually asking you that.
Well, really, we've got extraordinary rises in valuations at the moment.
That's right.
But as we can see, we trade in the world. In 12 months' time, there could be a completely different set of scenarios in place, and what we see now may not be. So I believe it is the time to be stable and wait. And, you know, because when you're asking that question, they will start to do it now, and it's got to be done in 9 months, ready to be effective by June. So they're really doing it now in the last 12 months, but the council held off here. And it's not the normal to every year to have a valuation. The council's got to decide. And in that situation, going back that time, Councillor O'Neill talked about, valuations were going down, but council didn't decide to have a valuation. And they've been up because of the boom and so forth. So, to me, we could be in a totally different position in 12 months from now. I hope we're not, but we could be. So that's why I believe the safest thing for the ratepayers of the Maranoa Council is to just wait, see what happens, and see whether this spike stabilises or is it a long-term phenomenon.
But then how do we ever make that decision, Mr Mayor? Because we can never know what the future holds. So how do we ever, how do you make, and I really respectfully am asking your opinion on this, how do we ever make that decision if we're basing our decision now that we don't know what the next 12 months is going to hold? In 12 months' time, we won't know what the next 12 months is going to hold. So when do we make that decision? I'm just so worried about the flow-on effect of the valuations going up, like further and further.
And, well, it could be that they go down, because I don't think there's ever been any spike that doesn't actually go up and then come down to the point where it sits. It might not be lower than where it was before, but, and it's in a very turbulent 12 months. So when you say, when do you know that? Well, you've probably got more data after 2 years than you do after 12 months that this is sticking. What happens to COVID around the world in the next 12 months? Do we get another outbreak? What happens? What happens to our markets around the world? We're very dependent on. God forbid if the cattle market really tanked, I don't believe that, we would be in this situation might be more stable. So there's all these things that are floating. Okay, so.
Or just a question also, over the last, say, 8 years, how many times have we done it, how many times we haven't? Well, you just...
Well,
Was the
I was
last
just going to
time
raise this.
2018? Was that the last time?
No, we didn't do a valuation last time.
It's here, a revaluation of Maranoa was previously undertaken the date, 30th of June 2018, so that was the last time?
I would prefer to check our records.
Can I suggest we lay it on the
There
table?
wasn't
Lay it
one.
on the table and
No, this will be our second year.
Yeah, but there wasn't one last year.
So that's 19.
That's correct.
Can I move that we lay it on the table until we get that information?
Righto, all those in favour? All those against? 8-1 if I call for a vote. Item 12.1, Roma Denise Spencer Pool feasibility study, update and next steps.
Can I just check the taker? Who is against?
It was made.
Councillor
Yeah,
O'Neill.
if you just check what you vote on. Because Councillor Burke moved that it lay on the table, so just remove the thing from the against.
1, Maranoa Denise Smith's pool feasibility study and updates and next steps. Do you have anything you'd like to add? Henry?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Councillors, the report in front of you just outlines a bit of an update on the Denise Spencer feasibility study project and the possible next steps. This is obviously a fairly critical aspect of council and a level of service for the community, so the recommendation presented I see as an obvious next step is to undertake some additional due diligence on this facility, gauge what other local governments and other pool lessees and that have done, which will just add to the pool of information that I can bring back to council to make a further decision on the steps forward. So.
Any questions, councillors?
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I would just like to add in there to invite stakeholders to have a deputation, but not the of the further. So I just want to make sure that those stakeholders are not up the top. We're talking about local government and different pool leases, and on number 2 we're talking about that. But on number 3 we're talking about community stakeholders. Just because we've been approached by community stakeholders to come and meet with council and speak about that.
So I think from reading this is actually to do with more, you know, how do we fix a pool, put a new pool in, go around other councils that have had ageing infrastructure, what they've done. So we, you know, because there's a lot of feedback that the council don't want us to spend a lot of money on a new pool. So if we can get feedback from that, but I think what you're talking about, Councillor Hancock, will definitely happen, and that would be probably when we've got more information about different ways council may decide to go, and then get the stakeholders in.
Correct, Mr. Mayor, but I'm just a bit concerned with this resolution going out to the community and they not feeling like they are part of the discussion. So I was.
So we would like another point put in there.
Or just to clarify, community in there, or just to clarify that we're going to invite the community stakeholders who are involved with the Roma pool to the table.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I understand what you're saying, Councillor, but this is not to invite the community.
I know, that's what I'm concerned about.
But we don't want to invite them at this stage, I don't believe. This is to, I might be wrong, the intention is to get the people to help diagnose the problem.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. To date, council's done a community survey and had detailed discussions with the parties outlined in this report. This report's also been drafted in open access for the purposes of providing the greater community an update on projects. So whatever's in this report is obviously for the community to see as a bit of an update. This step was probably to gauge a bit of feedback, and the way the resolution or recommendation drafted was just to gauge a bit of feedback on what experiences other stakeholders have with different types of pool technology, so we can then bring that back. I'd probably see that there'd be an additional step then to discuss that with council or findings of that.
That's pretty clear too, then that's exactly right, Cam. Just we've been out, we've had that feedback, some questions are raised, who else has experienced this technology, who's used that. Let's go and talk to those who've actually been through this process, bring that back to council, and then go back at the committee and able to answer some of those questions.
Sure, I guess that's the clarification I'm looking at, because I just know that that we've been approached, council has been approached by members asking for to be able to come in and get in front of council and speak about the project. So respectfully, I do acknowledge there has been community consultation coming up. I just don't want them to feel that they're being left out. I get what we're doing, I just don't want them to feel that they're being left out, but bring it back.
I just have one just before go to Councillor O'Neill. Also, when you ask under council, can you find out about contractors and what they've done, if they've done other versions and so forth? Can you get feedback on that?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor. The intent is to understand what experience they've had, who they've used, what methods they've used to replace this, and I suppose very importantly is what has the experience been if it was replaced in 5 years' time, 5 years ago, what's the experience been between the replacement and now, to see how that's holding up. So I think it's an opportunity to get some free lessons learned from other councils, rather than us have to relearn their lessons potentially.
What good information is shared with the committee then? So.
Yeah. Councillor O'Neill.
Mayor, I'll move that Council 1 receive and note the contents of the report, including market research summary and options for further development. 2, undertake stakeholder engagement with a range of other local government entities and pool lessees in Queensland and other states with the view of understanding lessons learned from major pool upgrades or refurbishments that have been undertaken within the last 5 years. 3, undertake additional local stakeholder engagement through a deputation with councillors. And 4, be presented with a subsequent report to a future ordinary meeting with the outcomes of the further stakeholder engagement. So, Kel, that reads, undertake additional local stakeholder engagement through...
Please, Councillor O'Neill.
Undertake additional local stakeholder engagement. Additional local stakeholder engagement. Through a deputation with councillors.
So by Councillor O'Neill, by you putting that number 3, you're saying what that stakeholder engagement will be before council gets the report. Is that correct?
No, it'll be included. I've included as number 3 because Councillor Hancock is correct and Councillor Burkett has raised this a number of times over the last number of weeks, that we have had people that want to meet with council to discuss the pool.
I think I've just worked out what the confusion is. The reference in 2 to stakeholder engagement. Point 2 is just about fact finding, isn't it? It's not stakeholder engagement. It's research. Could I make a suggestion, councillors, that 2 just be undertake research with a range of other local government entities and pool lessees, because it's to inform our decision, not that they have an interest in what happens in our pool. Are you comfortable with that, Director Rowland, Cameron?
Yeah.
And then could I make a suggestion, Councillor O'Neill, that we take 3 out and following that the results be presented to the future ordinary meeting for preliminary consideration, following which additional local stakeholder engagement be conducted about a possible way forward, because that way the local stakeholder engagement will be meaningful, because we'll have had all of the information and the lessons learned from the other areas.
Sure.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mr Mayor, because I agree with these, Councillor O'Neill and Councillor Hancock, that the community does need to know, because previous things like the Mitchell Pool, for example, that didn't happen, and these guys are doing a great job in making this happen. So I think if we get it all in order, everyone will be happy for it.
And in that way, the community has that information as well, about that lessons learned.
I was a bit
benefit from that research.
A bit worried when I seen it open, but once you explained it, transparency better.
Mr Mayor, and Council on page 91, there's still 3 very important questions we do have to go back to the committee with as well. It's just we're talking about a number of different methods to do it. Some of the light there's probably has been a couple of councils have been through this process, which we're getting technical information to bring back so we can further explore those. But on page 91, there's 3 very important questions we're going to go back to the committee as well too, so we do need to go back to the consultant committee.
Cal, can I make a suggestion? Following which additional stakeholder engagement be undertaken about possible ways forward. Something to that effect.
Or options available.
Yeah, on options available.
I think we could just go be undertaken.
And then just remove the word possible to leverage on Councillor Guthrie's comments, be undertaken about options available.
As a mover, I'm happy with it.
We have a seconder, Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. right, 13.1, request for sponsorship, rural financial counselling service.
We can actually recognise you there. Winter apparel.
Any questions, councillors?
Nothing disguised to make us
Hey.
nothing disguised.
Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council, 1, approve the request for sponsorship for Mungalala Twilight Barbecue and Fireworks. 2, draw the sponsorship payment of $5,000 plus GST from the Tackling Regional Adversity through Integrated Care, TRAIC, funding work order 20412.2001.2001. 3, request the that rural financial counselling services work closely with council to ensure that the TRAIC service agreement requirements are met.
We have a seconder, Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Point newspapers in the Maranoa. Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that council offer support to the West Queensland Echo and the South West newspaper by considering advertising with the publications as the need arises.
We have a seconder for that motion. Councillor Edwards. I'll speak against the motion. Does Councillor O'Neill wish to speak for the motion?
Certainly, Mr Mayor, and I note one of the editors of one of the papers has joined us here today. Mayor, I think this is simple. It's showing an in-principle support that in the event that we need to advertise with these 2 new newspapers that are filling some of the void, of which the print paper that we used to have being the Western Star across our community, and I think if we can, as a council, show some support to people that are clearly taking a business decision to fill the void, then I think that's a good thing.
Okay, I'll speak against the motion. I believe we need to look a little bit bigger in the bigger picture of things. I've seen the disruption of not having a printed newspaper consistently where the whole community feels that there is a paper, a go-to paper, right down to some of the happiest times in life and the saddest times in life. And I think we need to think a little bit big picture than what the motion is, and I believe that council should be considering securing a number of pages in a publication that is about the Maranoa, and also securing the amount of distribution to make sure that council does have a community paper. And I know there's, there's multiple publications now there, and I believe if we don't get in and make this happen, and I don't believe ad hoc advertising will do the same thing, I believe that we need to look at this as a bigger picture and say for the next 12 months, how do we secure a printed paper for all those people that are not online, for all of those people that have just been lost a few human rights by not having the paper available, and I believe that council has the capacity to secure part of a publication where people would go to for anything that they need in the community. Okay, would anyone wish to speak for the motion?
Can I just, so this is a specific recommendation on a specific subject, so if we want to add something or create another motion based on what the mayor said, how would you do that? I'm just saying that this is, when this came to us, that was the motion, so, if we're going to do something different to the actual recommendation,
The subject heading is newspapers within
yes, but it's advertising.
the mayor is if the mayor is open to another resolution to add.
Well, I'm just saying we can vote on this and then bring another one to the table later, to the meeting later, or combine with this.
You could, through Mr. Mayor, you can move an amendment if you wanted to, and see whether it now went.
Quite a mouthful
Or
before
a
it
subsequent motion.
Subsequent motion.
A wider publication, considering, something to do with considering other facets other than advertising. Just wasn't sure what the reason was, that was all.
Well, we've got a motion up and we're doing that. Unless someone wants to make an amendment, we'll keep going with this.
I'm happy with just voting on this one.
Okay, does anyone wish to speak for the motion? Does anyone wish to speak against? And does the mover wish to sum up?
Thanks, Mayor. I don't disagree with much of what you said. I think it's completely unrelated to the matter that is at hand. We've had two approaches from the West Queensland Echo and the South West, two new newspapers that are attempting to have their footprint across what had historically been the former Western Star print paper, acknowledging that the Western Star is still available online. This is simply in principle support, showing that us as a council representing the community that have put us here, that we support having print papers in the region, and we may consider advertising in those publications if and when the need arises. I just think this is a resolution that will show that we're willing to get behind a couple of new papers in the region that are willing to give it a go.
Okay, we'll put this one to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 8-1 if I can call for a division.
Joe's not here.
Oh, sorry, 7-1 if I can call for a division. I'd like to move that council consider looking at putting discussions in with local printed newspapers on an opportunity to guarantee Maranoa news, advertisements, and deaths and marriages, and a report to be brought back to a future council meeting to discuss options, also based on the... Sure. What have we got?
Might need to go back to the business, Mayor.
It's a term for that page.
Council consider looking at putting discussions in the local printing newspapers, guaranteeing.
And could you say entering into discussions?
Yeah. Yeah. Entering into discussions with.
Did you have anyone in mind?
Oh, well, just the people that are in the report.
Oh.
Guarantee newspaper space solely for Maranoa news, deaths and marriages, and advertising as a go-to for the community to find what's happening in the Maranoa as they have since 1875. And then, have we got in there about a report to be brought back for a future meeting?
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Taylor, any opposition?
Mayor, I mean, I'll move an amendment, and but would you consider it reading that, I'll say on the second line, that guarantee newspaper space solely for Maranoa news and advertising? The relevance of death and marriages.
Well, that's where people, I've had feedback that they don't know what's happening now if they're not online.
But with all due respect, we've never paid for those notices as a council ever. So that's what the individuals do. I get that it's newsworthy, but if we, Maranoa news and advertising,
no,
because we're creating a false expectation here. I'll move the amendment if you want to go.
What I'm saying, what I'm talking about is, say, 2 pages that have to be used for local Maranoa, and they can advertise, they can do whatever they want. It's guaranteeing that they're going to print the space, and that space is available for people in Maranoa. Not that, you know, so it's a bit like making sure that the ship runs, you know. Every week that's where it would be built from, and that's why they'd have to do discussions about how do we guarantee that, rather than, oh, there's not much in there. And obviously that would obviously help as far as journalists and how people create that news.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, are we allowed to ask one of the journalists what the actual name of that page is? That all comes under, it might capture the whole.
Like public notices.
Well, yeah, it's like
that covers that?
Yeah.
Looking around the room.
Well, man, you've foreshadowed you're going to move this, right? Or you have moved it. Maybe just delay it to later in the meeting. Morning tea's there. There's a couple of people you can talk to in the room. Formulate a good motion and come back.
Mr Mayor, just as a template, there are newspapers like the Chronicle that are now having an identified day. If you want information on a particular region, you buy the paper on that day, and they're actually trying to profile or provide a little bit of priority particular areas. So if you want the Warwick information, it'll be on a particular day. If you want the King of Roy, it's on a different day. So maybe that's a precedent that's been set or set up since the loss of these local newspapers.
And this is about guaranteeing the space and the council getting into that.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just before, I think that probably that's a good one, an opportunity, Mr Mayor, we've got some people to talk to, but is that the right wording with local printed newspapers? Because the issue is we actually don't.
Oh, it's locally available.
Because that's the whole point, isn't it, that we don't.
Have a printed
They're not printed yet.
So I think basically based on the report, unless we've got others. Okay, have we got morning tea there?
Probably don't need newspapers again.
I was thinking the same.
Well, we've got 2 more and I'd just like to get them done, so I'll lay this on the table until later in the meeting. All those in favour? 8-0. Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, I was going to ask something.
Item 13.3, request to host Opera Eagle's Nest, a touch of Andrew Lloyd Webber, a taste of Tim Ross.
Can I just ask a question through you, Mr. Mayor? Sure. I just had a look there before, maybe it's in the other. The capping on amount of people that can go, that can attend. Is that, I suppose, is changing every week, I suppose?
Yes. Yes, it is. There's a piece, and there's no guarantee that the situation will enable us to, they may cancel it.
Yeah. So you'd have like a cut-off period.
So they have cancelled. This was postponed. I was coming out here earlier this year, we can't have it. So it's been postponed, so we're trying to get it.
So it hasn't occurred anywhere else so far?
You'll be getting to watch it first.
Maybe through the other commission to say that observe COVID restrictions in place.
And Mr Mayor, we've received an email, and you might be able to confirm this, that it's been, there's changing information. It's now on the 29th of November, and it's being proposed to be held at the Bull Ring at the Ramasal Yards instead of the Cultural Centre. That was an email we received yesterday. Yeah.
Thanks.
Through you, Mr Mayor, can I ask why it was changed to the fairgrounds?
That weekend that is being proposed to come in November is actually the weekend that we have the Dance West here at that weekend as well, which is the Friday and Saturday night. So we just thought if we could bring the opera to the sale yards on the Sunday afternoon.
Thank you.
I've just got one more question, and then Councillor O'Neill wants to speak. The question is, what about the safety issues at the bull ring? Have we identified a way around managing them? With the lack of handrail?
Yeah, there was a lead camera as well,
Yeah, Mr Mayor, we're currently investigating, we've got a report to come to the next meeting of council. I just missed the timing of November. Is it November? Yeah, that's realistic. If it was in a month's time, I'd say it's probably unrealistic to have the manufactured and installed.
Right.
But a report's coming for the 26th or 8th, which is the next ordinary meeting of council, for council to consider possible retrofitting of additional handrails down in the centre steps.
Okay, Councillor O'Neill,
Well, I'm happy to move.
please go ahead.
Oh, sorry, can I just ask a question first?
Sure, please go ahead.
What time of day is it?
We haven't actually set a time, but I was actually hoping about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Just have it being a Sunday afternoon, have it as an early event.
Will it be too hot at the sale yards in November?
Well, it's open air.
We might have to move for some air conditioners.
No, because it's a cement event, cement building, I couldn't see that.
We might have to hose it down first.
Yeah, there's still wet seats.
Councillor O'Neill.
So I'll move it to answer Councillor Taylor's question, and it's probably something we do need to look at. That is going to be incredibly hot at 4 o'clock in the afternoon in that venue, given that we did the Australia Day event, albeit 2 months later, but it was summer, and at that time of day it was just far too hot. So anyway, that'll be something that I'm sure staff will consider. But I'll move that Council 1 accept the proposal from Opera's Eagles Nest to perform a touch of Andrew Lloyd Webber, a taste of Tim Rice at the Roma Sayards Bull Ring on Sunday the 29th of November 2020. Allocate funds up to 3,500 from the Arts and Culture budget GL 2885.2001.2001. 3, provide the Roma Sayards Bull Ring as in-kind sponsorship. 4, agree to the proposed ticket pricing of $20 per adult and $10 concession. 5, authorise the CEO to sign the agreement on behalf of the Maranoa Regional Council, and I'll do this on the fly. And 6, identify an alternative location that could be used if changes need to be made due to COVID-19 restrictions
And weather.
i.e. Bassett Park, Wall Court, or, I was going to say here, but that's obviously booked, but...
We have a seconder for that motion.
I'd be happy to move as a second, but I was going to raise something else.
Just EG, I think.
With the function at Bassett Park, if it goes ahead there, they're aware of the catering arrangements, should they need anything?
There wasn't going to be catering, it was just going to be the show itself.
Okay, thanks. I'm happy to move. Second it, sorry.
Right, I've got a seconder.
And Councillor O'Neill, if changes need to be made, last sentence rather than made. And I think you said Opera's Eagles Nest. Yeah, it's just Opera Eagles Nest.
Okay, mover happy with that? Is the mover happy with that?
Yes, I am, yeah.
Second is happy. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Just to say, Mr Mayor, I think this is a wonderful opportunity for our community to have an event of this nature in the southwest. Great job, Kim, facilitating it, and hopefully that it can go ahead subject to all the restrictions that may or may not be in place. I think the community will love it.
Anyone else wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. 13.4.
Yep, page 132.
Applications for funding Old Mitchell Bridge Pylon Up Work Project, Draft Project, Proposal 2020-2021. Councillor Burkett.
I move that council submit an application for funding under the Queensland Government's Queensland's Arts and Culture Recovery Package Spaces and Places Activation for the Old Mitchell Bridge Pylon Artwork Project. Quote for work to be organised. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to sign the funding application and funding agreement if successful. And 3, note the requirement to have the projects completed by the 31st of December 2021.
We have a seconder. Councillor Ladbroke. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Yes, Mr Mayor. I just think it's well, I know it's one of my projects, but I think lost a bit of identity when the old bridge went down, and it was a good little tourist attraction having all that artwork under there. So if we can capture that at the entrance of town, I think it's a bonus for town.
Yeah, I agree, and just it's great that we've that you've been able to raise it on behalf of the community, Councillor Burkett. Okay, so if anyone else wishes to speak, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. We'll break for morning, please. We in closed session.
You ready?
Late what? Not going, are you into the late what?
Just the ordinary confidential.
Yeah, I haven't read that, so we might go on the confidential. And,
yeah, I think that's, go ahead. Yeah, they haven't read it. We'll.
No, it's okay. I will work out.
I think Rob's saying too. That's the
C1, right? Well,
we're going to close, Mr Mayor.
we have a seconder. Councillor Hancock. All those in favour? 9-0. Right, so we're going to start now. Okay, we'll just resume. Now,
We're still in closed?
No, Councillor Burkett moved out and we voted on it, pretty sure.
Is that right, Phil? Yeah. Mayor, I'll move that we include agenda item C10, LC10, Yulbar and Waller and Villa LDO.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie.
What, your Barbara, Villa and Jackson?
Oh, Jackson, yeah.
And Noongar.
No, we just do the 10,000 and
310.
Well, they do look after Noongar though.
Well, that's a little different community, yeah. So no, that's fine.
Who's that Noongar?
Yeah, Noongar. Okay, so let's go to the vote on that. All those in favour? 7-0. Okay, moving on to C1, Roma Bush Gardens. Do we have a mover? I'd like to move that that Council A provide in principle. Sure. That Council provide in principle. That Council 1 providing principal support to use some of the excavated materials from Council Stage 2B flood mitigation works to create a small amphitheatre / community gathering space at the Roma Bush Gardens, subject to detailed design and any required approvals, consent from the relevant authorities as applicable, and 2, approve council officers entering into discussions with members of the Roma Bush Gardens Association Incorporate INC to establish a user agreement for the ongoing use and maintenance of the Roma Bush Gardens, including the proposed amphitheatre community gathering area.
And that should be incorporated, Calvin,
The mayor did say incorporate.
I'm happy to say incorporated. And I'd like to add a third point, that consultation be carried out on the plans with Manandangi Group. Okay.
And we probably don't need that, can we move to 0.3, because hopefully that's at the top.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion?
That should be consult. Yeah, that doesn't work. That council consult.
Undertake consultation.
Yeah.
Undertake consultation.
On the plans.
On the plans, that's probably even better. With B.
Yeah, I'm happy with that. Do we have a second for that motion? Councillor Edwards, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to the motion? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 7-0. C2, page 13. Access request for Roma Water Tower. Do we have a mover? Councillor Ladbroke.
I move that council authorise the chief executive or delegate to enter in further negotiations with Southern Cross Austereo in regard to placement of an antenna on the Roma water tower. Number 2, consider a draft agreement for placement of infrastructure on the Roma water tower at a future council meeting.
And just number the first one.
Do you want me to read that again?
No, that's fine, Councillor Ladbroke, it's just make sure it's the first one's numbered.
And it's Chief Executive Officer.
What does?
Just Chief Executive.
Okay, sorry.
Do we have a seconder for that motion? And do we have any opposition to the motion? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 7-0, or 8-0 I should say. Okay, moving on to C3, page 22. C3, application for conversion of tenure lot 6 on 8, lot 6 and 8 on EG 59. Do we have a mover? Councillor Edwards.
I move that council advise the Department of Natural Resources, Mines and Energy offers no objection to the conversion of GHPL 39-3366, being lot 6 and 8 on EG 59 to freehold tenure on the condition that 1, constructed section of Tomby Road and any associated drainage is contained fully within the allocated road reserve, with exception to council approved realignment of Tomby Road between chaining 63.050 and chaining 63.250, and number 2, the state allocated unformed road reserve, land remain in place to secure future access to neighbouring properties described as Lot 1 on SP 152692 and Lot 4 on SP 209776.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hancock, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. C4, council asset, 6 Burrow Street, Surat. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that council offer for sale by tender property located at 6 Burrow Street, Surat, and described as lot 502 and S282. On S282, I'm sorry.
Okay, we have a second, Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Page 42, C5, surrender of easement, lot 1 on SP 212826. Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council, one as granted, not approve the surrender of easement T on SP 275306 in lot 1 on SP 212826, being easement number 717504786, as this easement forms part of the Roma flood levy bank. 2, as grantee, approve the full surrender of easement A in lot 1 on SP 212826, being easement number 711633451, on the condition that all fees payable, if any, are borne by the grantor. 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to sign the Form 10 in respect to the surrender of easement A in lot 1 on SP 212826.
We could probably just remove bank on point 1, councillor Mullen, if you're okay. Just
which one, sorry?
Roman flood levy.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. So would you mind just broadening that, making it a touch bigger, just a little bit, please, a little bit wider. Now, yes, C6, page 64. Renewal of lease SL 36/52714 over lot 191 on DL 839181. Councillor Burkett.
Mr Mayor, I move that the council advise the Department of Natural Resources, Mines and Energy that council offers no objection to the renewal of SL 36/52714 over lot 191 on DL 839181.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. C7, council vacant land, lot 2 and 3 on Y22120. Do we have a mover? Councillor Edwards.
I move that council, 1, provide the applicant with the opportunity to meet with council planning and land administration staff to further discuss the proposed usage of lots 2 and 3 and Y22120 to ascertain whether the land is suitable for the proposed development. And 2, if this plan proves to be not suitable, work with the applicant to identify other land within Yulbar that may suit the applicant's requirements, and inform council of the availability of commercial and industrial land.
We have a seconder. Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, C8, page 80. C8, council asset 52 Oxford Street, Mitchell. Do we have a mover? Councillor Ladbrokes.
I move that council offer for sale by tender property located on 52 Oxford Street, Mitchell, and described as lot 1 on SP 203111.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote.
Located at. Just.
Okay. Do you mind just saying that, Rose?
It's just the on and the at.
What do I say, Alan?
On, I think.
So do you mind just saying that again?
That's fine, we don't need to do that, Mr Mayor, just.
Right.
It's just when we go to listen back to the tape.
Oh, you want
it's
to hear
not
the
same,
clarification?
Just, it's more clarification.
Yeah, right, okay. Okay, so the mover and seconder is happy with that. Any opposition? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour, 8-0. C9, Racecourse North East Injune land for sale. Do we have a mover? Councillor Guthrie.
I'm happy to move that council be provided with a report regarding options and approach for the sale of lots 8 to 11 and lots 13 to 30 on SP 297126.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Sorry, is that provided? A report?
Yeah, provide a report.
A report?
A report, yeah.
We had Councillor Hancock second that. And is there any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. C10, payment to local government mutual assets, annual asset insurance payment. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Council 1 authorise payment to Queensland local government mutual assets totalling $1,130,747.58, GST inclusive, being payment for property protection, ISR, motor vehicle, engineering, machinery breakdown, personal accident group, personal accident, voluntary workers and marine hull commercial. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to raise a purchase order with expenditure assigned to the 2020-21 budget allocation for associated insurances. And 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to complete future payments invoiced by local government mutual assets in accordance with budget approvals.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. I'll just remove myself for the next parking one and ask for the Deputy Mayor to take over.
We're on wood, lucky I come back.
C11, 3-hour regulated parking in Romas CBD. Do I have a move, Cameron? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move the Council note the table correspondence and the additional correspondence received on the 11th of August 2020 in relation to the matter.
Do I have a second, please? Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Anyone want to speak for or against? I'll put that to the vote. 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, page 186, C12.
I believe it was laid on the table, Mr Mayor. Councillor Guthrie raised.
I suggest it be laid on the table pending the decision to be made later.
Okay.
Got to do that now.
Well, we're laid on the table till later. We don't have to do it now. So we
Was it later in the day or?
Yeah. So we can just keep going.
I don't, we haven't been in open to do that.
What were we voting on?
We were going to do it, but you can't do it till you go into open.
No, true.
I'll move we lay this on the table until later in the meeting.
All those in favour?
Yes, I remember.
Later in the meeting.
Yeah, later in the meeting.
Yeah.
So that is 8-0 on the main on the table. Okay, seat 13, page 190. Seat 13, replacement of 4 grids, Mount Moffat Road and Womble Bank Gap Road. We have a mover, Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move note and receive the grid application. Note and receive the grid application.
That council first.
That council, 1, note and receive the grid application for the installation of grids 1, 2, 3 and 4 on the Womblebank Gap and Mount Moffat Roads. 2, note the installations of grids 2, 3 and 4 on the Mount Moffat Road have been assessed and will be installed by council in accordance with the Grids and Gates Policy version 4, February 2020. 3, approve the installation of grid 1 on the Womblebank Gap Road consistent with the landholder's request. That's it. No, we don't have to read the statement out, do we?
Up to the
Might vote first.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Read the statement of reasons.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Burkett, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
I think we've had enough, well, I don't anyway, thanks, Mr Mayor.
Right, are we going to go to the vote? All those in favour? 8-0.
And we can just add that now.
Do you have to read that out now?
Yeah.
This statement of reason, there will be a significant increase in road safety for the public using the Womblebank Gap Road, which is a higher order road within council's rural road network.
Okay, moving on. 204. C14, request for relief from excess water charges, assessment number 11003100. Do we have a mover? Councillor Ladbrook.
I'd like to move, number 1, approve the relief of excess.
Just that council at the start.
Oh yeah, that council, 1, approve the relief of excess water charges for this period in the sum of 1,226.92.
1,100.
Yeah, it's just a different amount there.
Read the amount again.
1,126.92. Number 2, advise the applicant of this decision.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Do we have the next page number?
221.
213.
I missed one. Yeah, I have 2 there, right? I've missed.
What was that page number again?
213.
213. C15, retable Surat Ball consultation summary. Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that 1. Let me start again. I'll move that Council 1 approve the new board to be placed at the weather station opposite the water tower. 2, include the additional financial contribution of 170,000 in the next draft of the 2020-21 draft budget. 3, request that a report be drafted on the works and costs needed to address the water requirements at the Waroo Sporting Complex. And 4, advise the community of this decision.
Kel, can you just take the S of the request, please, on point 3?
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Is there any opposition? I'll speak in opposition. Does the Mayor wish to speak to the motion?
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. I truly believe that the consultation that has occurred in the Surat community has informed this decision. We had approaches around the issues around the Wurroo Sporting Complex and the desire for the board to be considered in being placed at that facility. And had we not gone to public consultation, we wouldn't have had a broader perspective given to us as the body which has to make the decision. I was really impressed by the commentary that was provided by the community members when we met in Surat recently. I was equally impressed by the view of the representatives of the Wurroo Sporting Complex that they too see that the bore can be located where I've moved it, which is opposite the water tower. But we need to address the concerns that they have around the water requirements of the Wurroo Sporting Complex. And so I thank the representatives from that particular organisation for briefing council on their concerns, because that's informed our decision here today, that whilst we need to make a decision on where the bore ultimately is located, and it will have a positive impact on the Surat community, it's also allowed us to include in this resolution a desire to have a report tabled at an upcoming meeting where the works and the costs associated with fixing the water requirements that are needed at the Wurroo Sporting Complex. Had we not gone to public consultation, I'm not convinced that we would have been considering what's before us here today. And so I implore councillors to back the community that took the time to meet with us. The invitation was extended to the whole of the Surat community to participate in the consultation with council, and let's get this project underway.
I'll speak against the motion. Certainly don't agree with the what has been moved here. For a long time, you talk to many people on the land, and one of the first rules that they do is that they put infrastructure up high, so you don't have to pay for mega pumping costs. And I do not believe this is in the long-term interest of the Surat community. I believe that we should be putting the infrastructure up high. We've got a long-term problem at the Wurroo Sporting Complex, but I'm also, as Mayor, looking at a situation where Surat will expand, and I believe putting such 100-year style infrastructure, it needs to be put in the best place, and then we need to solve the issues so it is the most efficient running of the local government matriculation system. So I believe through the community consultation, all of the things that can be raised can be dealt with, but I certainly won't be in favour of any short-term decisions where it is not the best long-term efficiency. I'm also concerned about major flooding which could happen, as we saw about the 3 floods that were unprecedented in current times in Roma, and it could happen anywhere in our communities. Also, Surat is a river town, and I believe that for disaster management reasons, I would pick the best location and then sort out the issues after that. Okay, would anyone like to speak for the motion?
I'd just like to speak, Mr. Mayor.
Please go ahead.
I too would just like to thank the Surat community for engaging in consultation with council. Appreciate people took their own time to come and speak to council, and so that we could hear all the concerns from different members of the community, and so that we could take all those concerns into consideration when we make this decision. I would like to ask the Surat community not to lose sight of how important this project is for the water security of the Surat community for the future, and how fantastic this project is for that water security for Surat. This project is adds value to the town of Surat, and I'd like the focus to be on that.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak against the project or for the project? Okay, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Sorry, Mr Mayor.
Oh, that's right. You've got an opportunity to sum up. Go ahead.
Thanks very much, and I'll be summing up on the resolution, not necessarily the project. But yeah, our responsibility here, first and foremost, is to be prudent with other people's money. We should be thankful that the Australian government has provided us a significant grant to be able to achieve both this project in Surat and of course the one that we've already considered for the township of Yulbar. But there are additional costs attached to this, and we've got to be prudent to make sure that we are making the decisions in the best interests of our community, and that includes the best value for money. I do believe that this is in the right location. I do believe that it from my reading of it, is in a high part of town, granted not as high as what the Ruru Sporting Complex is. But as I articulated before, the concerns that have been raised by the Ruru Sporting Complex representatives to us, I believe, will be addressed. And it is firmly on Council's agenda. I don't think anyone will forget about what needs to happen up there. And I think this is a win-win for the Surat community. And as I said earlier, let's get the project underway and completed.
Okay, well, on that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? That is 6-2, and if I can call for a division. Okay, moving on to C16, Roma Salyards Complex Cleaning Services. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMahon.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Council agree to the request from Sharman Property Services Proprietary Limited to amend the price as outlined in the report in accordance with the service agreement from 1 July 2020.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. C17, Tender 20032, in-June Swimming Pool Management Agreement. Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that 1, Council select Veronica Pringle as the recommended tenderer for tender 20032, in-June Swimming Pool Management Agreement. 2, Council delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to enter into final negotiations with Veronica Pringle and execute the management agreement 3 years with the option of an additional 3-year period if the terms are acceptable. And 3, expenditure is assigned to the 2020-21 budget allocation for in-June swimming pool operations.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. C18, application for funding under the Regional Airport Screening Infrastructure Program. Councillor O'Neill.
I'll move that Council 1 submit an application for capital operational funding under the Federal Government's Regional Airport Screening Infrastructure Program, RASI. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to sign the funding agreement with the Department of Infrastructure, Transport and Regional Development if the application is successful.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Any opposition?
Is that capital and operational funding?
What did I say?
Join them together.
Sorry?
Councillor O'Neill, you join them together.
Oh, did I? For capital and operational funding. There we go.
So no one wishes to speak to this?
I will.
Please go ahead.
Thanks very much, Mr Mayor. If there's an opportunity to offset some of the costs attached with the changes that are needed to occur at the airport with the introduction of new security screening, which has been invoked by the Australian government, and I think this is a good resolution, and hopefully we hear in the very near future that we've been successful in offsetting some of those costs.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Page 299. C19, big rig project, multi-media tender. So we have a mover, Councillor Hancock.
The council receive and note the officer's report and design brief for the big rig multimedia tender as presented.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition to the motion? Does the mover wish to speak to the motion? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0.
So this is the one, Mr Mayor, that we had an extra resolution.
Okay, for C20. Oh, that's right. So it's still on the same C19, is it? Okay, so still on C19. Does anyone wish to move?
Yeah, I'll move, Mr Mayor. The council note the signing of a letter of offer for the Building Our Regions program for the big rig project.
We have a seconder. Councillor Hancock. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. C20, page 319.
Good luck with this.
Anyone can pronounce his name.
C20, approval for commercial use of land owned by council. Do we have a mover? Councillor O'Neill.
I'll give it a go. I'll move that council approve the use of land located at 81 Cambridge Street, Mitchell, for the purposes of Praveen Raj, Pushparaj, and I apologise, Raj, for my pronunciation, parking a mobile food van licensed with council to make and serve Indian cuisine on the following conditions. 1, the land is to be used by the applicant only for the parking of the licensed mobile food van at 81 Cambridge Street. And 2, the frequency be conditioned to 1 day on a 5-weekly rotational basis. And 3, the only food to be served at this site from this mobile food van during the hours specified in section 10 below is A, kebabs and curry. 4, the applicant is to provide waste collection containers for the site, and such containers are to be taken from the site upon departure. And 5, the van is to be located 2 metres off the front boundary line of the parcel of land to enable the food van clients to attend and be served without impeding the use of pedestrian footpath on Cambridge Street. And 6, the vehicle and mobile van must not impede traffic entering or leaving the rural agency immediately to the east of the site. And 7, council has the ability to revoke this approval at any time by written notice. And 8, the applicant must retain public liability insurance of $20 million for the duration of this approval, of which council is to retain a copy of such document. And 9, the duration of this approval is from Friday, the 21st of August 2020, up to and including Friday, the 10th of September 2021. And 10, the hours of operation will be from 11 AM to 7:30 PM.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 7-1 upon call through division.
Mayor, just so I'm clear, I didn't see you indicate in which you didn't, that you were against. Had you, I would have then spoken to the resolution.
Okay, thank you for that. Okay, moving on to C21, page 325. Request for in-kind support, Bendemeer Pony Club. I'd like to move that council extend the water main from town and connect a 25mm meter, and the estimate cost of $8,326.70 be included in the next round of the draft 2020-21 budget.
We'll just number those ones.
Yeah, 1 and 2. Okay, we have a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Just a question, Mr Mayor, are we going against policy doing this?
I'm happy to give a reason anyway, so that's the one. We'll go to the vote first. All those in favour? Okay. Happy to give the reason to create economic development and livability by supporting a non-for-profit community group. Anyone else want to add anything to that? Okay, we'll keep going. C22.
367.
367. C22, pre-employment service provider. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
Mr Mayor, I move that Council 1 support the expansion of current pre-employment checks to include a full medical, including drug and alcohol screen, and national police history check, revenue, employee and qualification check if required. And 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign the contract for Fit to Work from Equifax for the duration of 36 months.
We have a seconder, Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. We're on to late confidential. Thank you. Okay, LC1, page 3. Road surfacing upgrade of East and Russell Street, Wallumbilla. Do we have a motion? Councillor O'Neill.
I move that Council 1 select Oztech Asphalt Services Proprietary Limited as the recommended supplier for BP 194907 road surfacing upgrade East and Russell Streets, Wallumbilla. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to enter into final negotiations with Oztech Asphalt Services Proprietary Limited, noting the value of $252,871.70, inclusive of GST, for the entire scope of work, including provisional items, and form a contract by way of purchase order if the final terms are acceptable. And 3, assign the expenditure to the 2020-21 budget allocation for the capital renewal of East and Russell Streets, Wallumbilla.
We have a seconder, Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. LC2, lease agreement, Great Artesian Spa Management Agreement. Councillor Burkett.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I move that Council 1 approve the request received by the Ringer Action Group to extend the term of their agreement for additional 3 years in accordance with section 2.2 of the management agreement, and 2, increase the management fee by 4.7% to $190,365, excluding GST per annum, effective from the 5th of October 2020. 3, provide the amount of $45,000 per annum to compensate for the additional costs and responsibilities estimated by the Ringer Action Group for being an accredited visitor information centre.
And that was the only change, Cal, that first one.
Yeah, sorry.
From.
Did I miss that too?
Put in a different way.
I added that in there too. Sorry, Cal. Oh, yes.
Councillor Burkett, would you consider putting in there in lieu of increases in point 2, because that's why that. In lieu of
CPI.
Historical CPI.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good. Historical CPI, that explains why.
Do I have to, you want me to read that again, or good?
No, you happy with that?
I'm happy.
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to say I'm happy that the Bringa Action get another chance to showcase what they've proved in the last 3 years. It's a great asset for the town, giving a lot of employment. So, yeah, wish them all the best for the next 3 years.
And I'd just like to speak to this. I think it's exciting for Mitchell to give more of a service as far as tourists coming through a tourist information centre, and having that manned in the future will be a big change for Mitchell. And I congratulate a non-for-profit group for making this happen, and look forward to increasing what happens in the future for economic activity in the Mitchell area. Okay, does anyone else wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, moving on to LC3. Page 62. LC3 request for old Roma Bungle showgrounds and sale yards board sign. I'd like to move that council acknowledge the sign has no value or use to council due to its condition and obsolete wording. 2, agree to the applicant's request to acquire the sign from council at no cost. Do we have a seconder?
Just insert number 1.
Councillor Edwards as the seconder. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Was it Councillor Edwards or Councillor Ladbrook?
There were 3 hands went, well, 3 hands went up.
Quick one.
There were 3.
I'd be Julie.
And yeah, no one wishes to speak. I'd just like to say it would be great if we can keep a piece of history, and yeah, this is good use of it. Okay, on that note, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, page 68, LC4. Okay, this is one I'm out of the room for. So I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to take over.
LC4, correspondence in relation to flood mitigation project. Do I have a mover? Councillor Edwards.
I move that the matter lay on the table until a future meeting to receive further information.
Do I have a second?
I don't have to second it.
Lay on the table.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not. It's funny, but I'll second it.
well,
That's fine. Yeah. But to answer your question, it's not really a procedural motion now. Yeah.
Is there some action?
Action.
Any opposition to the motion? Anyone want to speak for or against the motion?
Sorry, who seconded that?
George.
Councillor Guthrie.
Well, I got George.
No.
George.
I think we might have to be a bit more vocal with it.
No one want to speak for or against the motion?
No.
I'll get put it to the vote then. All those in favour? 7-0.
Okay, page 71, LC 5. LC 5, Australian Pacific LNG Worker Transition Agreement Proponent Report Term 1. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 receive Australia Pacific LNG Pty Ltd's APLNG Proponents Report for the 2019-20 financial year. 2. Confirm the proposed date of 25th August 2020 to meet with APLNG representatives to review and discuss the proponents' report in line with section 6.1D of the Workers' Transition Agreement.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrokes, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. LC6, Project Update, Queensland Feral Pest Initiative, Round 3. We have a mover. Councillor O'Neill.
I move that Council 1 write to the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries requesting...
Sorry, Councillor O'Neill.
Oh, I'll change that. I'll move that Council 1 determine the exact amount of project fence funding to be returned following project assessment and negotiation of cluster agreements with applicants under the current tranche of preliminary applications. 2, write to the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries requesting a variation to its funding agreement under Queensland Feral Pest Initiative Round 3 to reduce the total distance of project fence by the length of project fence that remains unallocated. 3, authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign any documentation necessary to give effect to this resolution and the agreement. 4, thank the Department of Agriculture and Fisheries for the opportunity to assist Maranoa rural landholders in the control of wild dogs through the construction of 50% funded material purchase of exclusion fence.
We have a seconder. Councillor Burkett, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, LC7, budget 2020-2021 budget timetable. We have a mover. Councillor Burkett.
Mr Mayor, I move Council 1 launch the new online community engagement platform, Have Your Say, commencing with the draft 2020-21 budget. 2, invite feedback from the community for 1 week, commencing the 19th of August 2020. 3, set the 2020-21 special budget meeting for the 2nd of September to adopt the budget.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. LC8, deed of indemnity for construction of roadworks on state controlled road. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to sign the deed of indemnity for construction of roadworks on a state-controlled road for the upgrade to the Warrego Highway and East Street Wallumbilla intersection.
We have a seconder. Councillor Burkett, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. LC9, Queensland Tourism Icons Program 2020 Green D. We have a mover.
Just got a question.
This is the one that came in, there was council applied for funding for the big rigs toilets for that amount. We're successful. There's a resolution there to do it. We put the application. We're successful. Normally we put in the application that the CEO being authorised to sign off on the funding agreement. Neglected to put that in the previous one. So it's just authorised the CEO to actually sign off on the deed of agreement.
So Mayor, I'm happy to move and happy to be guided when I get to this point, but I'll move that Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer to sign the grant deed once all details are finalised.
This is on the deed of agreement. So,
Better word, councillor.
Okay, we have a seconder for that. Councillor McMullen, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? All those in favour? 8-0.
What have we got left?
Late 10.
Kel, yeah, is that what you?
Oh, that's right, it was no paper.
So is this LC10, Kel? What's the subject?
Can you just highlight, sorry.
Oh, yeah. LC10, minor changes to the organisational structure. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that council classify the position of local development officer Yulba Wallumbilla Jackson, I thought. Yulba Wallumbilla Jackson 0665 up to full time FTE 1. Is there more, Kel? Scroll down.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. Does anyone wish to speak? I'll speak to this. I think this has been very much asked by community. And I think the communities of Yilba, Wallumbilla, Jackson and Noongar will certainly appreciate anything council can be doing. Okay, anyone else wish to speak?
No, I just wish to agree with you, Mr. Mayor. This has been asked for quite a long time by those communities, and you know, my personal opinion is that I think it warrants a full-time officer to be able to cover off on all those communities.
Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? 8-0. Okay, so we've got some late light, I think, have we? Yeah. Open?
Yep.
Is that L1?
Yes.
Right. L1, new fee for community safety services. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr. Mayor, I'll move that Council 1 adopt an animal boarding service fee for displaced animals due to COVID quarantine at $40 per day per animal. The fee is for the provision of an ad hoc animal boarding service due to COVID-19 quarantine restrictions. And 2, include the fee in Council's register of fees and charges.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition to the motion? I'll speak in opposition. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Right, thanks, Mr. Mayor.
I'll speak in opposition. I won't be supporting this because so many lives have been disturbed by having to quarantine, which I understand is a very important part of keeping the state safe. But $40 per day will end up at $500, I believe, if they have to do a 14-day, nearly $500 for a 14-day quarantine. And that is putting exceptional cost on people that may not be in a position to pay. So I believe compared to our normal cost, this is an extreme amount of money per day and will not be supporting this motion. Would anyone else wish to speak? Okay, we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? Okay, so we'll just do that again. All those in favour? All those against? Okay, so it's 4-all, and I'll use my casting vote to vote down the motion. I'd like to move that council adopt an annual animal boarding service fee for displaced animals due to COVID quarantine at $20 per day per animal. The fee is for the provision of an ad hoc animal boarding services due to COVID-19 quarantine restrictions, and also for this service to be available when there is no commercial services available. And 2, include, sure. So just on point, is that point 1? Yeah. And this be available.
At the end of point 1?
Yes, please. If no other options, if there is no other options. If there are no other options. So obviously if there's commercial businesses doing it, this would be where there's no other options. Yeah. Yep. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Edwards. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
I just have a question, Mr.
Please.
Mayor. How do we expect our officers to check if there's no other options being available? What's the policy with that?
Well, it could be that, for instance, the police actually say that there's no other option for the animals, so can you look after it? So it could come from our other partners in this space in disaster management.
So is it just, or is it that they ring to check there's other options, or that is required? Just so the staff know how to do. I'm not against it. I'm a details girl, and so how do we make sure that is another option?
Yeah, so basically, if they're told that, and I think the cases have come from the police, so if they don't have another option, then council will take them.
Can I make a suggestion, or just to tweak it a little bit?
Sure.
To say, and provide proof of no other options being available. So they're actually, the onus is on the people who are seeking to take advantage of this to show that they've tried to access local boarding facilities.
Well, it could be the police is the only thing that they might say, because they're running the quarantine centre, but they say.
Maybe confirmation, maybe have the word of requiring confirmation that that's the case.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, just to be devil's advocate, because if we happen to be cheaper, and we're not getting any proof, we'll get lumbered with. Yeah, so I agree.
That is my concern.
Yeah.
That was why.
People might take advantage of it either way, if it's 40 or...
Yeah, from what I've heard, the police have actually said, can you take the dog? Or take it. So I think we've got to have some flexibility there.
Well, that's proof if the police are doing it, I suppose that's proof.
I guess, that's a conversation that we could have with the police, is that first port of call is commercial business. My second question is just through you, Mr. Mayor, to the officer. The cost, what does it actually cost us? Sharon's running away now, but... Julie, sorry.
Sorry, we're just going to manage it.
increase on what we're charging now, so.
I take your point about the expense on top of the expense that they already have, so I'd like to know the cost.
I'm going to get. You can't answer it, Rob?
Oh, I didn't have any questions. I'm sure it's going to be the next group of people that that's all, so that's fine.
Lay there already, Rob.
I don't think it's your question.
No, Rob, I think you can answer. You can try.
They don't have to go.
Oh, it's just a kind of answer.
No, it's cost of boarding for animals.
Just all people.
No, I don't know exactly, council. I do know, I've had the discussion. Obviously, I was contacted by QPS in relation to we provide that service, and I put them in contact with Sam Thrupp. And I was talking to Sam's staff the other day about it and what we were charging, because we were obviously looking at the reduced fees during the COVID stuff, and the comment was made to me, the reduced fee that we were charging wasn't covering our cost of actually delivering the service.
Which is $7.50
Which is
per day.
$7.50.
Oh, perfect.
In terms of what the actual cost is, no, I'm sorry.
So hopefully she's not going to drag her out for that.
So
I just think it's community service, really. Simple as that.
So
it doesn't have to be making money out of it, sure.
So it's what we were charging for the reduced figures that we've adopted there because of the COVID, we are reducing the fee, the fees, so they'll apply on average
$15.
But the comment was made by the staff was they go and look at it and the government is
It does specify in the report though, this fee being the $15 does not cover the cost of the food and care required for an animal being contained in the facility.
But this is COVID-19. So we're going to move her in a seconder. I think that gives us a bit of clarity. Is anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against? 7-1 if I call for division.
Who was the division?
Councillor O'Neill was in the negative.
Does someone want to tell directorship? Oh,
Did she take a phone?
L2.
Might have been, set up. Yeah.
L2, page 7. Training opportunity for councillor complaints. I'd like to move this
Mr. Mayor,
council.
before you do, I've just got to ask, do you have a conflict of interest in this matter?
No, I don't think so.
And the reason I raise that is because at a meeting, at the first ordinary meeting in May, you declared a conflict of interest because you'd received correspondence from the Office of Independent Assessor.
So I was actually going to move a different resolution to this anyway. So, yeah, do you believe I have?
I'm asking you, do you have?
With training, do you mean?
The report references the Complaints Tribunal hearing, which is a mechanism of the Office of Independent Assessor, and the Office of Independent Assessor is listed in the report.
Well, I have to get legal advice on that. So I lay this on the table till the next meeting. All those in favour? All those against? 8-1 if I can call for 7-1 if I can call for a division. L3, in June grease trap. I'd like to move that council organise quotes for the installation of the grease trap for Cafe on 2nd in June, several metres away from the existing location, underground and in the grassed area next to the footpath. When I should say next to the inside of the footpath, so it's not on the outside of the footpath. Number 2, cease the community consultation and any further actions in relation to the installation of the screen fence. 3, organise a quote for the removal of the cement block and infrastructure if required. Do we have a second of that motion? Councillor Guthrie?
Just the body of the report that was saying about to be brought back, if you want those to be brought back, just in terms of location, I hate to move a motion after it's, I don't know if we actually put infrastructure on footpath that's outside of it, we don't do anything like that, so I'm not saying we can't.
It might be on the inside, but I'm happy to have other options.
Yeah, I can do that, bring it back.
Yeah. So the idea is that we get some quotes back and then council would make a decision.
Thank you.
We had a seconder, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to.
Sorry, Rob, does that mean that we have to add extra words to point one?
In the body of the report it said we'd bring that information back, but it's just in there, just because the location, it is a footpath there and we don't do it anywhere else, you don't put.
It's got
Probably can't put out the footpath, that was
got
all.
to be adjacent to the foot, like.
Yeah, it's just got to be within the confines of the property, so they may, to achieve that maybe somewhere else in the ground, but just obviously you lock yourself into a spot and find out we couldn't do it, so. And
just through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm just not sure if the veranda and the next building, if there's a bit of a step in.
Yeah, I can check that.
Yeah, I've got a feeling there might be, that's where I think, in that grassed area, but it mightn't have enough room, it might encroach on the footpath too.
Is the intention that organise quotes for an upcoming meeting for the installation of the grease trap? For presentation at upcoming meeting?
Thank you. So is the seconder happy with that change? Okay, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Sorry, there was other words in there on alternative location, and that you just delete them. Can I just get clarity what the movement is intended?
Yeah, any other locations, alternative locations other than there, yep.
It just means.
Yeah, we'll suggest.
Alternative location.
Yeah.
That'll look awesome. Suggested.
Maybe suggested needs to be in there, Kel. I said take it out. So the idea is that there's that area that will identify as inside the boundary, but if it's not, we've got other options that comes back to council.
So, sorry, I interrupted the vote, and Mr. Mayor, I just needed to be sure what I meant.
Are we happy with that now? Okay. Okay, we'll do the vote again. All those in favour? 8-0. L4, proposed merger of SWLGA and SW Red report. I'd like to move that council receive and note the report prepared by Greg Hoffman on behalf of South West Queensland Local Government Association. And number 2, adopt the recommendations contained in the report with the exclusion of or noting, probably point 3 I would say, and then point 3, noting that the structure and the structure of The structure of an executive officer and chairman and independent chairman be discussed before any decisions are made.
Page you on, Mr. Mayor?
I was back on,
When you were looking for that, just so.
it was in the red. Yeah, page 28, part-time executive officer, EO.
Sure, page what?
Page 28.
Page 26. See the points down the bottom? It's through the report. Okay, do we have a second for this motion?
No, just on point 1, can you receive a note? Yeah, thanks.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Sure.
So page 13, do you have to do anything there under the background? Just so you have to give me present at this meeting to us to get unanimous agreement.
Yeah, this is what we're sort of doing at the
So is
moment.
that what this is? But you have to actually say that creation of new organisation winding up the existing ones. It's about just on the background, page 13.
Put forward recommendation, page 13.
13 of the proper thing.
Sorry.
Of the council.
No, of this report to us. It just says the 6 meetings present at president's meeting support the report, and they would prepare a report to be tabled in order to get the unanimous. So the fact that you prepare this report basically.
It goes on to say, in order to achieve that, it was agreed with all member councils to put forward the following recommendations to each council, that the report prepared by Mr. Greg Hopkins on behalf of South West Queensland Local Government Assembly be received and noted, and that recommendations contained in the report be adopted.
Mayor,
could you
elaborate on point 3, because that just does not make sense to me at all.
And probably does need to flow for 2, because 2 will be contradictory to 3.
So you're saying note the structure of an executive officer and independent chairman be discussed before a decision? That doesn't make sense. What?
Right, so be discussed by the member groups, and I'm happy to explain that if you'd like that explained before we go any further. So, and as you can see in here, it's asking for a contribution of each council if this is adopted, of an increase in contribution fees, which, you know, is obviously something's got to go in here too if council decide to do it. But I believe, obviously we're putting 2 organisations together to get more bang for our buck, but also more economic development. And I've talked to other mayors, for instance, and there is talk that an independent chair could be appointed to drive, especially the economic development side, and work as 2 positions, the executive officer and a chairman that could, for instance, one on the ground in our regions, and one, the suggestion was that the executive officer may come out of Brisbane. And this would be, and I believe rather than just rubber stamping the report, I believe that needs more discussion. And I'm happy if we're not on a deadline, we can leave this to the next meeting. But, so I think the things that council have really got to be considering is, do they wish to put more funding into, because all the councils under this model will have to put extra funding in. And the second part is, how do we get more bang for our buck? And I believe an independent chairman of the new, especially the economic development part would be needed, as well as the executive officer, because the executive officer is not going to be on the ground unless they generally fly out. So I believe there's got to be, for instance, with one of the organisations, not many people knew what they did. So I believe that we need, hence why not to rubber stamp it and say there's got to be more discussion with the 6 councillors.
And so, Mayor, the discussions you've been having with other mayors, are they mayors of the coming from Southwest LGA and Southwest Red?
Yeah.
And so are you taking your proposal back to an upcoming meeting of the member councils with a proposal to have a part-time executive officer and an independent chairman?
Well, it's really up to the council whether council supports that. But what I would like to do, rather than just rubber stamping the report, I think it's a good report and there's a lot of good in there, that we need to have a model where we have a local face as well as an executive officer that will obviously be able to liaise with government, which is in the southeast corner.
Sorry, that's the chairman you want to do that?
No, the executive officer would be doing that.
So the independent chairman you said before would be coming from Brisbane?
No, sorry, the independent chairman could be someone from our region, the 6 councils region, that could go and be an advocate for economic development, working with the executive officer, which would be, I believe, the suggestion has been for someone living in Brisbane to do that. So, you know, you've got the best of both worlds. And then the other thing is, as you can see in the budget, I'm sure everyone's had a chance to read that, it's a major increase in funding by all councils on a flat rate. And councillors have to decide whether they believe this is value for money. But there was a lot of discussion that what's working now is not really working, so we've got to change it, and I believe the independent chair would be a really good thing to lift the profile in the region. So do councillors want to lay this on the table till the next meeting so you can have more of a think about it?
So in doing so, which I don't not support what you're suggesting in terms of laying it on the table, just laying it on the table and for us going away independently and having a read is not going to really nut out anything. If we're coming together on the 25th to meet on other matters, could this be part of the agenda for that day to come up with a proposal that can come to the next general ordinary meeting of council?
I don't mind. I believe other mayors are going to bring up this about the structure, so I think we've got to get everyone to understand it and then decide, like, we've got to make a decision on A, the funding, and B, the structure of the council.
And I'd really appreciate to hear, like, we can all go away and read this, but I'd really appreciate hearing from you, Mr Mayor, what happened, what was discussed.
Yep.
You know, you've got some ideas. I'd appreciate a briefing from you on it.
Yep.
Mr Mayor, can I just make a comment too?
Yeah.
I wasn't at that meeting either.
No.
Did
they say that you were?
Yeah, I was at the other meeting for the road.
You're at the IRAP meeting.
So, Mayor, if you haven't done, I'll move that we lay this on the table until the next ordinary meeting of council with the briefing to occur on Tuesday the 25th of August.
Righto, we'll put that to the vote. All those in favour?
And equally, Mayor, is that the appropriate time or for you to give us a full briefing of what happened at the meeting in Longreach, and will you be bringing back a formal report for adoption?
There wasn't really much. I think the CEO was at the meeting too. As far as this one, it was basically a very short meeting too. But we've got minutes, I think, of that. If they're not in here, we can get them. So, but I'm happy to explain. At that time about the feeling about an independent chair. Okay, L5.
Just so I'm clear, sorry, I'm not referring to the meeting that happened between representatives from the Southwest LGA. It was the broader Western Queensland Alliance meeting that you attended. Will you be tabling a report?
I'm happy to. We'll get the details from that. Yeah, no problem. L5, expressions of interest, member of the Great Artesian Basin Stakeholder Advisory Committee. Councillors, I got sent an email on this. Would be happy to do it if you wanted me to go as a council representative, but really I'm just putting it up for what the council believes. And it's just an email, so, you know.
But for completeness, I received the email as well.
Oh, did you? Right. Well, I think how about we lay this on the table till the next meeting as well?
I think it's got a due date.
Oh, has it?
Friday the 21st.
21st of August.
So, Councillor O'Neill, were you looking at applying to this?
So I wasn't nominated by Maranoa Regional Council. I was nominated by the Queensland Local Government Association to be the Australian Local Government representative. That was what the position I filled under a different iteration. That coordinating committee doesn't exist. This is the new stakeholder advisory committee, and I've been approached to be nominated through another body.
So just my naivety, does that still mean potentially we're going to have two people going? That's
Well, I would think
Not- I
council,
mean,
any other
not
nominated as
so
a
councillor,
representative of the.
Well, I haven't been nominated yet. I've been approached whether I'd be interested in
Approached.
continuing in representing, because it's not Queensland specific, it's Australian local governments that fall over the basin, whether under this new iteration of the stakeholder group, whether I would be interested, and I said that I would be, and they were going to come back to me about what the next steps were.
So,
But the question, well,
Sorry.
if you were, what's the word, if you got that position, council would still have to put someone else in it as well.
No, it's not. I'd be very surprised. Look, it's not, every council will have been sent this because we're stakeholders. There'll be NRM bodies that have been sent this. There'll be state government departments that have been sent this. They have just put this out because it's the new regime. So I don't think that there will not be a representative from every single council across the basin.
Is there anything wrong with this guy?
it's got to be. You've got to let them know what you say, 21st.
21st.
so Mr Mayor,
Vote.
I'm happy to move that that council nominate Councillor Cameron O'Neill to be the representative, just to submit an expression of interest for the Great Artesian Basin Stakeholder Committee.
Okay, do we have a second for that motion?
I'm so confused on that. So that's why I asked, can we potentially have two indirectly? One council, but I mean, if
Well, you
Kevin, you wouldn't want to go on the other one, wouldn't you?
No, it's the same one, right? And
No,
the reason that they came to me 4 years ago is because I have a background in this space. And so whilst I was playing a community role, being a councillor, I've worked in catchment management for 15 years. So that's why they came to me to nominate, to play a specific role around the table.
Anyway, do we have a mover? Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Okay, do we have any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
I'd just like to say that I think that Councillor O'Neill is experienced in this field. He represented council in the last term of council, and so therefore, what reason would you have not to consider him again to represent Maranoa Regional Council in this on the Great Artesian Basin Stakeholder Committee?
Yeah, I'll speak. I won't speak for or against. I'll just speak. It's probably more the fact that if Councillor O'Neill does get nominated or asked to be nominated, depends whether you want council representative or not, because anyone can be a member in any way. So I really think it's really, really about who is nominating for this position. Okay, does anyone else wishes to speak?
Can I just ask Councillor O'Neill, does he feel that he can go and represent two entities and do that? Because you're obviously going to be representing the other entity.
Well, no,
let's
the role,
their interest.
in the previous 4 years, the role was to represent the entire local government fraternity. I was the Australian local government representative on the Greater Tees Basin Coordinating Committee. So I represented this council, I represented the councils in New South Wales, I represented the councils in Northern Territory that fell over the basin. So the role that they're looking for is not about having a Maranoa Regional Council representative. The role is a stakeholder rep on the Greater Tees Basin group. Now, when you get there, you have to be much broader than where you've come from. So it's not about representing the interest of one particular council, or, you know, for example, there could be a representative that comes from AgForce because they're a stakeholder group in agriculture, but they'll end up representing agriculture right across the basin.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
No worries.
Okay, well, on that note, so just clarifying, so are we nominating you as a local government council representative or not? That would be the question.
Well, just for argument's sake, say we don't nominate and Councillor Neil doesn't get the other one, we end up with no representation. So,
But are they expecting, from every region, are they expecting a person?
Councillor Neil said that it doesn't necessarily happen.
Because there's only, you'll see in the literature that's been provided.
They wouldn't want 77.
No.
Right.
There is.
People turn up.
I think there's 16, isn't there? Committee size, 14 members including the chair. And so they're coming from right across the basin, Queensland, New South Wales, Northern Territory and South Australia. Albeit Northern Territory and South Australia are smaller footprints than the other two states.
Is it a paid position?
It's not a paid position for people that are associated with government.
Yeah.
There are sitting fees for other community representatives.
Okay, but just to clarify that, would you be going as council representative if we approve this, or just will there be travel fees and so forth, or do they handle that?
I can't answer that.
You've never been.
And
So
really,
it's a new body.
Are we going to benefit out of having a representative?
Well, that's what council's got to decide. But
I think they would.
but I'll get a motion. We need to make a decision. All those in favour? 780. Okay, is there any further business, councillors?
We still have one in there somewhere.
Oh, and there was, the council news is laid on the table.
Yes. 11.1.
We're nearly at the door.
Oh yeah, 11.1, that's right.
You better get moving.
Oh, yes.
So what are we going to do with this one?
So what is this just a council news?
No, this is the
Valuations.
Councillor Neil put forward the last motion, which was seconded by Councillor Taylor, and earlier the board was allowed
Why don't we lay it on the table for next week till next meeting? Do we have to make a decision?
I have the information, Mr. Mayor. So the last annual valuation was effective from the 30th of June 2019. So that valuation has been, or will be in effect for 3 years, 2018-19, 19-20, and now again 2021. In terms of
each year we pay for the valuation role, and that is whether or not there's an annual valuation. No extra costs.
Yeah, so that's quite
What is the cost?
aged,
That is.
We had an email with the costs on, but it's expensive. And we have to pay it whether we get it or not.
Yeah.
It's very substantial.
I sent it through.
Yeah.
Does it, we have to decide by this meeting, if we can go to the next meeting, is there a time frame on it?
Yes, the 21st of August.
Yeah.
Another one, 21st of August.
That's a big day.
Yeah, but in Queensland.
Okay, well, so is that the one you got next, Kel?
Yes, yep.
So what item number is it?
That is item 11.1.
In the what?
In the white pages.
The original, your first papers of the day.
Oh, yeah, no, I managed to lose mine. So.
They're right in front of you, aren't they?
No, this is the other matter. Okay, so we're on 11.1. Well, we had a mover, as far as I remember.
Yes, I moved it and Councillor Taylor seconded it.
Okay.
Councillor Taylor's
No
had
longer
to,
here.
she won't be back either, so.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter, like.
Not on the seconder.
No. Okay, so let's have the debate then.
Where are we? 11.1.
Would the mover wish to speak to the motion?
Well, it was actually summing up. It was at the point of summing up. There had been a debate.
Why did we?
And it was laid on the table because Councillor Burke had asked for the information that the director's got.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was last week. It was that long ago.
There's another one there though too.
It's one ago. Yeah. But if I can, just I want to make it very clear. We need to be clear in this room because we'll get asked outside, regardless of what the outcome of this resolution is. This is not our decision. It has never been our decision. We cannot say yes and no and that be adhered to. We can say, we can share our opinion, which is either do it or not do it. It's very clear in the letter from the Valuer General. In line with the requirements of the Act, I seek your local government's opinion on whether a valuation of your local government should be undertaken to be effective on the 30th of June 2021. I don't want people, because this is where it was getting a bit misleading earlier, thinking that we have the right to say no or yes to this. We can share an opinion to that, either yes or a no, but we have no decision-making power around this. So I just wanted to make that very clear because it was getting a little bit confusing with the language when we had the debate earlier that was in fact a role for council to determine whether we have a value undertaken or not. It is not. We simply provide an opinion. I have argued in the past that this is a cop-out for the state government because ultimately when these decisions are made by the state, who gets the blame? Council does, right? But they have asked our view and we are going to express it. So in summing up, having been here a little while now, I've seen the impact of holding valuations for 1 year and I will never advocate that that happens again. Now the state will determine what they determine, but from my perspective, we've got to let the market do what the market does. Otherwise, our community can be burnt, and I've seen our community burnt by holding valuations.
But through you, Mr. Mayor, we did hold them since then too.
We didn't, Councillor McMullen, the state may have.
We recommended. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, Councillor O'Neill? You were saying that it was you'll never do that again, and you ruled the decision that you made.
Yeah, me personally, I'm not talking about the council decision, me, yep.
Yeah, and you did that on the fact that you didn't do a valuation. So for you to rule that decision, like, it must have been that council does get listened to, even though it's just opinion, because otherwise you wouldn't have minded that you made that decision, because, it sounded like if you'd made that other decision, then maybe council did, then maybe they might have done a valuation. You know what I mean?
That's a question for the valuer general. They assess what individual councils have to say, and they list in the letter there's other criteria that they use to determine whether they undertake a valuation or not. My point is, by advocating, as we did in that particular year, to hold them, and there was a significant downturn in the industry and all the other impacts that occurred, our community felt that pain 2 years down the track. And I saw that pain, and I don't want to see it again.
And that's when we asked them, we suggested they hold them again, and they did then after that.
Okay, well, we have to make a decision. All those in favour of the motion?
Consider the right to the department.
So just to refresh your memory, because it was hours ago, it was moved by Councillor O'Neill, seconded by Councillor Taylor, and I spoke against it, and that's where we're at. Okay, Councillor O'Neill, would you mind reading it out?
The council write to the Department of Natural Resources, Mines and Energy with the position, I can't amend that now because Councillor Taylor's not, with the position that Maranoa Regional Council requests that evaluation be required to be effective on the 30th of June 2021. I have no way of changing that now, do I? What's Councillor Taylor's not here?
No.
Yeah.
We could put no vote taken before into a second motion. No vote taken at the time.
Just some wording you want to change to
That's
tidy
correct
it up.
anyway, there was no vote taken.
No vote was taken, yeah.
So what wording did you want to change?
I just want to soften it. The council, it would be something along the lines that council write to the Department of Natural Resources and Mines with the opinion.
So we might need to copy that, Cal, because it'll be a second resolution, not the same one.
But wouldn't we keep going because we laid it on the table?
But
anyone
to get more information, now it's come back and the second is not here. So
Councillor O'Neill wants to change the resolution, but he can't because without the permission of them. So this is a way out, a legal one.
So what would you like it to read?
It would just be that with the opinion.
Or with the suggestion?
Suggestion, opinion, well they've asked for an opinion, so I was going to use the word opinion, that Maranoa Regional Council,
that evaluation is required?
Yeah.
To the effect.
So just to be sure,
To the effect of
same valuation has been used for the last 3 years.
It's been pretty stable.
Two.
Oh, and it applies for this year.
Sorry? This will be the third, sorry, yes.
Councillor O'Neill is saying that the electronic just provide, just go with it.
Fourth year.
The next year.
Yeah.
Okay, so are you happy with that, Councillor O'Neill?
Yes, I am, yep.
Right, is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Hancock. Well, I think we better do the debate again because this is a new motion. So you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor O'Neill?
I do not.
I certainly do. Councillors, I implore you not to request this. I believe that we have so much effect of COVID-19, both in positives and negatives, in the region at the moment, and I believe this is a year to consolidate, as in the next financial year. And I'm really worried about spikes that we're starting to see, and they may be long-term, but they may be short-term. So I believe this is the time to not request evaluation. I understand that it is not our decision in the end, but since I've been on council, that recommendation seems to have held quite a lot of weight, even though it is only an opinion or whatever you'd like to call it. And I believe that what's in the best interest of the Maranoa is for us not to approve this motion. Councillor O'Neill.
All I will add is that there are motions that I really advocate for that I'd like to get up, and sometimes I'm okay if they go the other way. That's all I'll say.
Okay. Would anyone else wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? All those against? Lost 2-7 if I can call for a division. 2-6. I'd like to move that Council write to the Department of Natural Resources, Mines and Energy with the opinion that evaluation is not required to be effective on 30th of June 2021. Is that the right, that's the right date?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor McMullen, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? Now we'll go to the vote. All those in favour? All those...
Sorry, Mr Mayor, it's been a long day.
Sure, we'll do that again. All those in favour? All those against? 6-2, I can call for a division. Is there any other items?
Yes, there is.
Council news.
Yeah.
Do we have a number?
We do. It's C12
C12.
on page 186.
The original pink, I take it.
Oh, and the newspaper one was laid on the table.
There's part 2 of item 13.2, there was a second resolution.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You foreshadowed another motion that you laid on the table.
I'd like to lay that on the table at the next meeting. I move, which one are we on?
That was 13.2.
Is that the newspaper one?
So I have a conflict with that, just saying.
Okay.
So do you want me to leave so you can deal with that?
Yeah.
And then...
Won't be long because
I won't, I'll be right at the door.
because so what number is the newspaper one, please?
Oh, goodness.
Item 13.2.
Item 13.2. Newspapers in the Maranoa, I think we might have said. I move that we lay this on the table until the next meeting. All those in favour? 6-0. Okay, now we've got council news.
Where did we say that was?
186.
Can't remember what it is.
Delayed on the table. C12, council news, August edition. Could we circulate the council news with the changes here? That's a good idea.
Good suggestion.
It's not going to happen tonight.
No.
Are you on C12, Kel?
Yeah.
Okay, I'd like to move that Councillor Guthrie, do you have some wording there?
I don't, but I'm just recognising the fact that L3, the outcome of our discussions for L3 is going to mean that we cannot approve the actual council news that has already been distributed.
But could I just make a suggestion that, in line with what Mayor offered, is that, that the update of the council news be circulated for review once it's been updated with the items on today's agenda and final briefing.
I move on that basis. Do we have a seconder?
I'm having a second on that basis.
Okay, Councillor Guthrie seconds that. Anybody we wish to speak, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? Okay, 8-0. Any further business, Councillor?
There is one other point, Mr Mayor. You have not confirmed 3 sets of budget committee meeting minutes.
Oh, that's right.
At the beginning.
Can they lay out until the next or they can't?
One required, the one on the 29th of July required a listening to again, just for a particular component raised by Councillor O'Neill. On the 5th and the 11th, I'm not sure what making to give councillors an opportunity to review those.
I don't think there's any requirement to have those adopted at the ordinary meeting. They would need to be adopted, which I thought should have been happening anyway, at the next budget.
No, they're not confirmed at a committee meeting, they're confirmed at the ordinary meeting.
So then, therefore, before the next, if there is a budget submissions and planning committee, we would have to hold a special meeting prior to that to adopt the minutes.
Well, that gives, have a good listen to them, all of that.
We can't, the reality is we can't do them now.
No, the people outside are wanting food.
Oh, have we got it?
No.
I got a daughter, wait,
Go to bed.
Where's she in the
I
car?
got a wife.
No, it's her birthday, she'd be waiting with me.
Yes, we do.
Not that that's a big drama.
Just move them over.
The challenge there though, I'm sorry, is that
And this is the important.
yeah, I know where the fingers get important. The challenge there is that decisions, recommendations have been made. Oh, but then I'm talking myself out of it now. If they don't have to be adopted at a budget, we could have multiple budget standing committee meetings. And not have those meetings adopted before the next one, is that correct, Julie? Because you can't have an ordinary meeting of council without having not adopted the previous
So
one.
in answer to your question, we've already got to the number of meetings that we've had multiple committee meetings before the ordinary meeting.
Yep.
So we're just effectively, there is nothing more that we can do other than hold it on to the next ordinary.
Mayor, I'll move that the adoption of the budget submissions and financial planning standing committee minutes of the Kelly, 5th of August
Hold them all over, are you?
and the 11th of August. Oh, sorry, well no, we've done the 29th, haven't we?
29th has not been done, that was laid on the table to replay an element.
All right.
The other two, I'm not sure why.
So I'm moving the 29th, the 5th and the 11th, 29th of July, the 5th of August and the 11th of August, budget submissions and financial planning standing committee minutes be held over for adoption until the next ordinary meeting of council.
Okay, we've got a seconder for that. Councillor McMullen, all those in favour? 8-0. Is there any further business, councillors? On that note, I'll close the meeting at 7:30.
John, what's the time? Just
7:31. Thank you for your attendance.